Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Ketamine Connections podcast. Today's episode is what the is a ketamine coach and what is it that I do as a ketamine coach? So, a brief recap of the first episode that released of this podcast. I was so excited to share for you a little bit of my story. I introduced the show. I definitely talked about my journey through, hypnosis, plant medicine, subconscious reprogramming, and things like that. And I gave some sobering facts about the status of mental health in the world today. It was a great episode, honestly, and I really hope you got a lot out of it. My biggest intention for the show is to invite you into my ketamine coaching world where I work one-on-one with clients and I answer questions like, how does ketamine work and why does it work and is it safe? Is it legal? Who can benefit? Can I benefit? How do I know if I'm benefiting from ketamine? So this is the work that I've been doing for 3 years. If you want to hear a little bit more about my story, go back to that first episode and let me know if there's any more questions that develop from hearing of how I landed in this work. And then today I'm going to get a little bit more into the nitty-gritty of my role as your ketamine coach. So let's get into it. First question, what is a ketamine coach? So let's give a clear definition of what my work as your ketamine coach is. And that is to bridge the gap of all the questions that are not being answered by clinics. I'm sorry, I'm laughing here because I'm, reading my notes because I'm really working to organize my thoughts in this first few episodes. And that to me felt a little sassy. And I also know that it's true. I also know from working with clients over the past few years that most clinics, definitely not all clinics, most clinics are not talking about preparation, not talking about integration, not talking about, why the ketamine is working. How do you know if it's working? Not educating clients about the subconscious mind. And that is the synopsis, the summary of what my job is. Yeah, to answer all the questions that no one else is answering and to help steer the ship. Okay. So let's think of it this way. If you're coming to ketamine therapy, you're going on a journey. Most clinics have a ketamine schedule that works in increments of 3, 6, 10, or 12 sessions, 6 being the most common. So let's pretend that, you just signed up for 6 sessions of ketamine and it's the same as if you just signed up for a cruise. Now, you can think of your prescriber as your travel agent. They're going to recommend the destination. They may even recommend a cruise line, maybe even help you get a ticket, and that's it. Your clinical staff is like your boat crew. Their job is to keep the boat in motion, make sure that your drinks are cold, provide the nightly entertainment. Now, let's think about this, okay? You can be on the best cruise ship in the world, and if you stay in your cabin the entire time, are you going to have the best experience? Probably not. Now, if you had a personal concierge that came to your room every morning and gave you a list of everything you need to prepare for the day and make sure you actually got your butt out on an excursion and made sure that all of your questions were answered and made sure that you knew where things were on the boat, would you then be set up for a better cruise? Well, hi, that's me. And I laugh because I think of someone with a clipboard and it just brings me back to how many summers of my life I spent as a camp counselor. I had a 10-year career in study abroad. So thinking of myself as like a personal cruise concierge reminds me of camp counselor, which was my life for a long time. And thinking about being your ketamine coach, being like your best camp counselor is pretty on brand for just my personality. Anyways, where was I? So yeah, I'm your personal concierge. I take the time to get to know your interest, right? Like, do you want to go fly fishing or do you want to go snorkeling? Do you actually want to stay in your cabin the whole time? Because there's nothing wrong with that if that is a representation of your best life and what your authentic goal is. And I work with you to make an itinerary of what's going to light you the up, right? What do you actually want to do? This is what I tell just about every single client in my first preparation session with them is I'm here to help you set the GPS on your journey. And then I am here to check in with you throughout your journey to course correct, make sure that you stay on track. And recently I had a client say to me really sweetly, oh, I might just end up doing ketamine forever so I can keep working with you, which is super sweet. And also because the integration phase is essentially a lifelong phase, I do work with clients for an extended period of time. My longest standing client right now is about 2.5 years. So the integration piece of actually incorporating the life changes is an ongoing process. And that's what I'm here to do, is to help you stay on track. And I often get asked, just because I am in this very medically adjacent field, I often get asked, how my job is different from a therapist, a psychiatrist, or even a traditional life coach. And I really love this question. So hopefully my cruise analogy really shed light on how many different roles there are on this ketamine journey. It really truly takes a village. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that wherever it is that you find yourself, it took you some time to get here. And so whatever your goals are, and most importantly, how aligned your subconscious mind is with the goals that you want to make, that's going to be how long it takes for the changes to come through, for the, ketamine to work. And also there are definitely steps in that process of the ketamine working, right? It's not a switch that flips, or at least I'll say it's rarely a switch that flips. And mostly it is small changes that happen over time. And I'll be talking about that in another episode. So don't you worry, more of that to come. So how am I different from a therapist? Well, punchline, I'm not a therapist. I am not trained as a therapist. I'm not licensed as a therapist. All of that is very clear in all of my messaging and all of that, because my background is in hypnosis. So hypnosis is the process of changing and transforming the subconscious mind. Subconscious mind is the 95% of your brain that you want to change, or at least make sure that you have on board to make the changes that you want to make if you actually want ketamine to work. So if you don't already know, there have been multiple studies over 30 years that I know of, although it might be more, that show how ineffective talk therapy is. And I can definitely do a whole episode on that if you guys are interested. There is a lot of science that I can shed light on why traditional talk therapy is not the most effective form of therapy. That was my experience with talk therapy. I participated in talk therapy for about 15 years on and off. And I know that a lot has changed. I have therapist friends. I myself have returned to therapy. And so I know that there are more and more traditional therapists doing work that goes beyond traditional talk therapy. However, because of my experience for so long of therapy not working for me, and then finding hypnosis and seeing my life change within, honestly, a few months, I don't practice traditional therapy, and that is how my work is different. Also, I am educated in and teach about the subconscious mind, which is the part of your brain that you want to change if you want the ketamine to work. And most therapists are not trained in that. So that is how my role is different. And the other thing about talk therapy that to me was always a sore spot is I didn't want to talk about my feelings. I just didn't. And I didn't want to feel like everything I said was being checked into a box, right? Oh, she said this, so this is what it means, or this is what it could mean in the future. I just felt like traditional therapy was trying to put me into a box, and I did not like that. I am also all for whatever therapy works for you. The studies that I mentioned earlier that talk about the ineffectiveness of talk therapy are talking about, it's not that it's 0% effective. It's that the rates of talk therapy are effective to about 30-ish%. If we're talking traditional talk therapy, somewhere between 30 and 40% over a sustained amount of time. Whereas other therapies like CBT, hypnosis, they have higher rates of efficacy over a shorter amount of time. So it's really, do you want to take the scenic route to your best life, or do you want to take the fast track? And with ketamine as a therapeutic tool to heighten the neuroplasticity and make the changes when you're working with someone who understands the subconscious mind, understands the patterns of the subconscious mind, understands the language of the subconscious mind, those changes can be accelerated. And that's what I've seen as your ketamine coach for the past 3 years. As far as a psychologist or a psychiatrist, these players tend to be the legal drug dealers. So their role is to get you access to the drugs. You can call it medicine if you prefer. There will be an episode on the difference, because those are two contentious terms to talk about substances when we're talking about healing with the assistance of substance, as we're talking about with ketamine therapy. So the psychiatrist, the prescriber, whoever it is, they're here to make sure there are no contraindications, there's no medical concerns, and they do a really great job of that. We love our medical staff for sure. And at the same time, these are not the players that are going to check in with you and see how you're doing, make sure that you're prepared for this journey, make sure that your ship is still steered in the direction that you want it to go. And they're definitely not the population that tends to be educated about the subconscious mind or how the ketamine works to transform the subconscious mind. These are the people that are looking at the clinical studies and saying, oh, ketamine works. You look like a great candidate. You should go for it. Not, here's how it works. Here's how you can make sure that it works. Here's how you can make sure it works for you. And here's how to check in to make sure that it's working. So these are the prescribers, and they're incredible. But like I said, with the cruise analogy, they're here to issue you a ticket, right? You wouldn't go back to your travel agent and ask if you needed an umbrella because it might rain on day 4 of your cruise, right? You're going to ask that to someone else, like your ketamine coach. Okay. Next order of business of why work with a ketamine coach. I have so much to say about this. Let me start with a punchline. 1, if you have questions and if you're not sure if the ketamine will work for you, or if you've been on this journey where you're used to someone telling you, here's this, it'll make you feel better, but no one has actually explained to you how to make yourself feel better, how to be an empowered player and participant in your healing, that's where your ketamine coach, that's where I come in. Because here's the thing, I've seen this time and time again. I'm not working with everyone working with ketamine, although I have clients that I have worked with, before they even started their ketamine journey. We were set up and we were going, and have been working together for, like I said, up to 2.5 years post ketamine journey. And I have clients that had already started their ketamine journey anywhere from a few weeks, 3-4 weeks, to I think the longest standing client had been working with ketamine without any support specifically for ketamine. They were working with a therapist and a psychiatrist and their prescriber and the clinical staff for 9 months, and the ketamine was not working until we started working together. So here's what I want to say about that. Ketamine can be the line in the sand between who you were and who you're becoming. Like it was for me in the explanation that I gave. November 2018 is a huge line in the sand of who I was before and who I will continue to become for the rest of my life. And who knows, maybe there's more lines in the sands. You never know. Once you get onto the psychedelic model of healing, shit just gets weird. There's my first curse word in the podcast. Now I have permission to curse forever and ever. Okay. So ketamine can be that line in the sand, right? It can be the line in the sand between who you were and who you're becoming, or it can be just another thing that I tried that didn't work for me. And the difference between that is coaching. The difference between that is having that personal concierge who's like, hey, what are your goals? Hey, what do you hope to get out of this? Hey, you know, how do you want to experience your life that you're not currently experiencing that has you coming to this therapy? And also someone who's like, hey, have you heard of the subconscious mind? Hey, has anyone talked to you about trauma? Hey, do you know what neuroplasticity is? Default mode network, any of that. All things I will cover in further episodes. Don't you worry. There's a lot that I have planned for you here. But for right now, the reason pointed and personalized ketamine coaching is important is that it becomes like your safety raft. Is that how you say it? Like your lifeboat? Question mark. It becomes the life raft. Oh my gosh, I'm just making stuff up now. Of making sure you get to where you're going, right? It's like your extra tire. Oh my God, I just keep using metaphors that I don't know how to use. Oh, I'm a sinking ship right now. And this light just went out in the room. Okay, we're back. Let me take a breath and get the reins back on what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is that as your ketamine coach, my job is to make sure that you get the most out of ketamine, sort of like an insurance policy, a lifeboat, life raft, someone to make sure that the ketamine steers you where you want to go, because it would be really devastating to invest. I'm not even talking about the time and money, because time, okay, you cannot get time back. Money is a renewable resource, but the most valuable thing on this journey, if you are where a lot of the clients that I work with are, which on this journey of like, I tried this, I tried this, I tried this, I tried this, ketamine is something new and I have a lot of hope for it. And if you are someone who's coming to ketamine with like, hey, I'm like really in a place where I need this to work. Like I'm in a dark room or I'm really feeling not good. Let's just put it that way. And ketamine is here to offer me hope. Well, I'm here to tell you that ketamine alone is unlikely to offer you hope. But what it will do is that it'll give you enough relief from whatever you're feeling so that you can get into a hopeful place on your own. And the other reason of why I exist as your ketamine coach is because working with psychedelics and ketamine specifically, you open up a window of heightened neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is the ability to change your brain. And to be clear, you have the ability to change your brain anytime, truly. However, ketamine will increase that window of neuroplasticity, which means that you will have a window where it is easier to make change, where things feel lighter, things feel better. All of a sudden, the things that you were, oh, hey, it would feel better to go for a walk. It would feel better to eat better foods. It would feel better to do that thing that's been on my to-do list for 2 months that I just cannot get myself to do. All of a sudden you're like, with ketamine, you're like, oh, yeah, I could do that. And then the changes when you go from a place of static to movement, it's that first step. It's getting the momentum going that is always the hardest. And once the ball is rolling, things become easier. And that is essentially how big changes from ketamine happen, is by getting over that inertia. And I want to be really careful with how I say this. If you work with psychedelics, if you work with ketamine, and you then go back to everything that you were doing before, meaning the actions you were taking, the thoughts you were thinking, the people that you were letting influence your decisions, if you did ketamine and then went back and did everything the same, you are strengthening the old instead of building the new. And that is what, your ketamine coach, that's what I'm here to do, is to help make sure that you are making changes and actually taking advantage of that window of heightened neuroplasticity, which leads to what my notes say next, which is the benefits of having a ketamine coach during your ketamine journey. And I've said a lot of this, but I'll just summarize here. I'm here to explain the neuroplasticity. I'm here to explain the subconscious mind. I'm here to help you make sure that you're taking advantage of that window of change that opens up. And I'm here to make sure that you are steering the ship in that direction of your desired destination. Now, what does it look like to work with me as your ketamine coach? It looks really different for everyone. As I explained earlier, there's people that come to me before your first ketamine process. There's people that come to me when they're already in process, and then there's people that come to me after they finish their process. So what it looks like is, we, in our first session, what we do is we set the GPS, okay? So what does that mean? It means looking at your current location, right? Where are you at? What I tell clients day in and day out, where you're starting is not where you're going. So there's no shame, there's no shoulds, there's no anything other than literally like where we at, okay? What does the clock say? Where's the thermostat set? How much gas you got in the tank? Like, it's that level of just accepting where you are and then setting the destination of where you're going. Okay. You can have the best GPS tool in the world. And if you don't have your current location, it's not going to be able to pump out directions, how to get you to where you want to go. So that's what the first meeting is. It's sort of a status update, right? Where are you? How did you get here? And where are you going? Now, this also leads into the preparation, right? A lot of times, whether clients have already started or not, what we're going to do is we're going to prepare mentally, emotionally, and physically for the ketamine. And we're going to set an intention. The psychedelic model of healing is different than the traditional model of healing or the Western model of healing, because the traditional model is the psychedelic model, funny enough. What you really need to do, there's, the number one rule of working with psychedelics is set and setting. Setting is like your literal geography. Where are you? Okay. And with ketamine being administered in clinics and things like that, I do additional work to help people turn it more into a ceremony than another visit to the doctor's office, just so that the subconscious mind is again on board of like, hey, this is different. And set is your mindset. Like, where are you at? Are you hopeful that this is going to work? Are you feeling positive? Is there something that you're trying to lock away or keep out because that's not how you want to go into a psychedelic ceremony? That's not how you want to go to ketamine. So what we do is we set that GPS and we distill in an hour-long conversation into a sentence. I'm willing to feel better. I'm ready to feel better. It's time for me to release the past. I'm stepping into my most confident self. Whatever synthesizes that hour-long conversation that spans like, hey, how did you get here? What's not working? Where do you want to go? And taking that entire conversation, distilling it into a one-sentence mantra, intention, whatever you want to call it, anchor. And that is what the client will take with them into the journey. And that's going to be, until it's no longer relevant, that's going to be sort of the North Star, right? So when they're getting into that chair and they're like, oh, wait, I don't know, is this right? I'm ready to feel better. I'm doing this to feel more confident, whatever their personalized intention is. And the really exciting thing is that after delivering so many of these first sessions over 3 years, there really is a science to this session that I have developed. And I put it all into a PDF that is completely free. It always will be free because I want people to have access to this. So if you want to dive into preparing for your first ketamine journey, or if you're even just wanting to make a change in your life and curious about how to prepare for that change, that is a great guide to dive into. It's free on my website. It'll be in the show notes. Please have at it. It is my gift to you. Okay, so we talked about the first session that I do with clients, and from there, that's where we're kind of course correcting the ship. So as long as the client is in the ketamine schedule, again, that can be 3, 6, 10, or 12 sessions, depending on how they're working on it. It could also be ongoing. I have clients that I work with that go 1 to 2 times a month to keep up with it for whatever, because it's what works for them. And so it's like, I think about it like bumper bowling, like, we want to go towards that strike, but we're just like, oh, a little bit over here, a little bit over here. What's working? What's not working? What's important? What's not important? We do that throughout the ketamine sessions. And we don't really make big changes at that time. That's when we're just kind of like, okay, we're gathering the information, we're taking in what's working, we're course correcting where needed, but we're not making any big changes. A lot of times, it's not a lot of times. There are times though where clients are going through, their ketamine schedule and they're like, I need to quit my job. I need to divorce my partner. I need to move across the world. And my biggest advice is always like, great, like you can do that. You don't need to do that right now. And let's just finish what you've started, which is this ketamine schedule. And then let's unpack that together. Now, everything that I just said, I have guided clients through, leaving jobs, moving across the country, divorcing partners. That is actually something that can result from psychedelic use. However, it's not something you want to do as a rash decision. You want to take your time with it, and you want to work with someone that's going to help you guide that process, because these are all identity markers, right? Job, partner, living scenario. These are all parts of the ego, parts of the identity. And when your subconscious mind is hardwired to stay the same, you don't want to freak it out too much unless that's a skill that you've developed. The integration phase. Again, the integration phase will be for the rest of your life. You will always be on a journey towards who you're becoming. So that's really working with new tools, working with what's working, and checking in. The clients that I've worked with for longer than 6 months, it varies. Our schedule for meeting can be once a month, once every other month, once every other week. It really just varies and depends on what they're going through and how many more changes they're making. Because when you are looking to make any change in your life, you're looking to make a change in your subconscious mind. And there is an art and a science to making that change effectively and in a way that sticks. All right. Now, some tips on finding a qualified ketamine coach. I want to really emphasize that you want your ketamine coach to know the subconscious mind. You want them to be able to explain to you the subconscious mind, the default mode network, neuroplasticity, set and setting. That those 4 things are psychedelic use 101. If you are interested in going out and finding someone to work with, if my books are full, which they might be, and they kind of ebb and flow as to when they are or aren't, you want to make sure that you are asking really good questions as far as, their experience in the field. Have they worked with clients like you? Are they educated in all the things that I mentioned, the subconscious reprogramming work that is going to need to take place in order for your changes and your desired outcome to occur and to stick? And if you are interested in getting to know these topics more, I'm going to have links down below. I have that free PDF guide. I'm in the process of turning it into a video guide rather than a PDF guide. So you can keep an eye out in the show notes for that. And you can always subscribe to my email list where I will be updating all of this information and be the first place to know when new things are released and where you can find more about this work that I'm so incredibly passionate about. What else can I tell you? I love your questions. So please see the show notes and submit a question. I would love to answer your question on future episodes. And I just want to say thank you. If you've made it to the end of this episode from the bottom of my heart, thanks for sticking with me. This is only the second episode that I've recorded. I've been talking my whole life. It is literally my job and my career. And I just want to say thanks for listening. It makes it so much more fun to know that you're on the other line, taking this information in, getting something out of it, sharing it with your friends, sharing it with people in your life so that they get to know a little bit more about this innovative new therapy that is changing lives and has the potential to change the world and course correct the course that we're on right now, where we are colliding with some really major mental health crises. So if you got even anything out of this episode, even like one piece of new information, like what the is the default mode network? I'm going to go Google that right now. Just like this, leave a review, leave a star or two, share it with a friend, and subscribe. Hey, there's going to be one of these coming out every week. They're just going to keep getting better. So stick with me. I love you. Thanks for being here with me. Namaste. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Ketamine Connections. I hope you found our discussion insightful and empowering. Remember that understanding the subconscious mind and how to make the most of ketamine therapy can truly transform someone's healing journey. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to share it with your friends and family and anyone who might benefit from this information. So few people considering ketamine therapy are fully educated about its potential and the impact that it has on the subconscious mind. Your share could be the key element to their transformation. Don't forget to subscribe to Ketamine Connections so that you never miss an episode. And if you have a moment, I absolutely adore reading your reviews. So your feedback really helps me feel like this is an engaging exercise. Otherwise, I just feel like I'm talking into empty internet space. So your review really helps light me up and also helps me reach more audience. So I would appreciate one if you're willing. And please use the link below to submit any questions or topics that you would like covered. I cannot wait to hear from you and to co-create this journey together. Until next time, keep exploring, stay curious, and embrace the possibilities that are available in this moment right here, right now. Thanks so much. See you next time on Ketamine Connections.